Labor Committee, which was a bigger deal then than now, but still a big deal. And I was pretty humbled there being there with him. But anyway, and Gus said, or Congressman Hawkins said, well, I don't know about this workers' rights stuff, because this thing didn't have a name at that time. I don't know about this workers' rights thing, because we were asking him to put the Labor Committee on the road to hold hearings, because it was clear then, 25 years ago, that this was a slaughter. There was no opportunity in any real way for workers to organize in the United States. That was clear 25 years ago, totally clear. Even though then, 20% of workers, 1 out of 5, had bargaining rights. Today it's 12%, that includes the public sector, 7% in the private sector. It was clear then that in the private sector it had already dropped from 36% to 14%. So these are like gigantic seismic shifts. And so he said, Congressman Hawkins, my district is Watts. We have high unemployment. It's all about jobs. And I said to him, as a pretty young organizing director at that time, I said, well, with all due respect, we don't just want jobs. We need jobs with justice. Yeah. And now, almost 25 years later, I think that notion is more important than ever. And it's not that the jobs campaigns aren't critical. John Hyatt will be talking tomorrow about that here. An AFL-CIO jobs campaign that we're all involved in. But what's missing from the economic as well as the human rights discussion in this country now, almost totally missing, is that through that whole 25-year period, worker productivity, what we all do when we go to work, has continued to increase as it was back in the post-World War II period. Slope of the line is almost the same. But for that whole time, that 25 years and even a bit more, wages are stagnant. And that line that looks like this, while the productivity looks like this, directly mirrors the line that looks like this, which is bargaining rights in the United States. Right? Yep. So we got a simple message that unites us here. Unites these 50,000 IBW and CWAers in Verizon. Unites every worker here, public, private sector, all 4 regions. Every person here, person of faith, civil rights activist, student leader. Doesn't matter where we come from. It unites us all. That you can't have, this is not new news, you cannot have an economic recovery if workers can't bargain, sit at a table with their bosses, and get the fair share of what they produce. You can't do it. You can't do it. February 1st, 1938, John Maynard Keynes writes to President Roosevelt. Long letter. Great that you're doing a jobs program. That's how he starts out. He doesn't say it exactly like that. He was British, but that's just great. And great that you've invented the SEC, so you're some financial regulation. That's just great. But then he says, quote, I regard the expansion of collective bargaining as essential. Now that's not because, like us, he was a progressive human rights kind of person. This is a liberal economist in the British sense of the word liberal. But he absolutely knew then that if workers can't raise their wages, you are headed for recession after recession after recession after recession. You can never, ever, ever recover. And so, wherever we come from here, right now, we have to make it clear, and many of us will be involved in standing up to the right-wingers in Congress in these weeks as they come home, ready to cut Medicare, cut this and cut that. And they believe that in a free market economy, more of a surplus. Now remember, productivity like this, wages like this, that's a $500 a week wage gap now compared to 1970. The productivity increases since then versus the wages. These people believe that that surplus has to go up to give them enough incentive to invest in jobs in this country. And we have one word for that: bullshit. And so, you know, in your packet was a leaflet about the Olive Garden. And their CEO, who's part of this Verizon board, you know, who voted to, as a board member, he's accountable for this. That's why we're having those actions. Clarence Otis helped the top 5 executives at Verizon walk away with $258 million over the last 4 years. And, you know, each boss is mostly the same, right? It's the song, The Who, Meet the New Boss sings the old boss. It's not really about them as individuals. Any Who fans out here? Really showing our age. Should be talking about rap music, but anyway, hip-hop is really where I'm at. Thank you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Wall Street, listen to the beat. Anyway. There's really, couldn't be more clear, but it's up to us in this room. It's up to us in this room, more than any other group I could think of, to speak this truth. No different than not only the MCI fight, but then Andy helped lead the fight with the machinists and the Transport Workers Union at Eastern Airlines. That is when Florida Jobs and Justice started. And that is when we began to say, hey, hey. Union bustings. Yeah. So that slogan is as old as Jobs and Justice. There's many, many others. But anyway, the point is that that message is not getting through. As important as it is to fight for jobs, if workers can't raise their wages, there'll be no economic recovery. As nice as it might be, when the president says, we'll cut 2% from the payroll tax, a much quicker way to stimulate the economy is give workers the right to sit at that table with their bosses, and we will raise our own wages. And so I sort of used up most of my minutes here, I think, but I want to come back to this Verizon fight, but actually before I do that, the key is really what you're all doing when you stood up from these regions. When we started Jobs with Justice, in addition to the pledge and the 3 key issues, jobs, standard of living, bargaining and organizing rights, the pledge that you'll be there for somebody else's fight, and we used 5 because, frankly, if even the labor movement as it exists today, smaller, we were each there 5 times for somebody else's fight, 15 million people, it's not a close call. We would turn this thing. Right? But the key notion was that we can't, just like we have to be there for each other's fights, we can't start over each time. Here's my favorite coalition. Or here we're going to have this coalition for this fight or that, Verizon or whatever. No, no, no. What we understood then is that we could build relationships, love and solidarity, working together on an ongoing basis, all of us. Whether we could get a union where we worked, or whether we got defeated in trying to get a union where we worked, or whether we were retired from working, or whether we were a student not yet actively working. It didn't matter. That it was what we stood for. And that we could build these leadership groups, the local coalitions that you all come from. And they would get deeper. They would get deeper, whether it's Boston or Buffalo or Portland or St. Louis and all the ones that I just left out. From all 4 regions. That they would get deeper and that would be there. And those deeper relationships would enable us to fight the next fight more successfully than the one before, because we'd have more allies, but also deeper relationships. We called it broader, more people in each community, but deeper commitment to each other. That we'd be there not just 5 times in some cases, but as long as it takes, as we said at Pittston, one day longer. And so I close with the story of Verizon right this minute. This management, hours before this contract expires for 50,000 fighters, and they fought before. These people, I mean, they know, you talk about deeper, they're pretty deep. From the youngest to the oldest, including at least 10,000 organized retirees. But this company at this minute has 75 major bargaining demands on the table. They are demanding to take back every single thing that has been negotiated at this company for 50 years. Every single thing. They want virtually the whole health care plan back. No more pension accruals. New workers don't get a pension at all. No more differentials if you work on weekends or at night. Every single thing they want back. And as I said to the new CEO, he's only been there a week, he's been there, but as a CEO, I said to him, many times in the last few days, I said, Lowell, our people are not going to work if those 75 demands are on the table at midnight Saturday. They are not going to work. Because we're not going back to 1930 or 1920 or 1910. And we will, hopefully, most of those 50,000 understand that this may be about their fight, and this fight goes from Southern Virginia to Northern Maine, and these are fired up workers. Ron and Ed and I, and maybe some others here, were at a rally last Saturday at 11 a.m. in front of that headquarters in New York City. Remember, this is a bargaining unit sort of just shy of 50,000 members. 15,000 of those members were there at 11 a.m. last Saturday. They were fired up then because of the work that all of you do. They know that this is our turn. We might not have asked for this, but this is what we face. Just like it was the turn of workers in Wisconsin who will win on Tuesday when they kick those buttons out. And just like it's the turn of workers in Ohio as we repeal SB 5, now we take it to the private sector and we say that a $100 billion company that pays multi-million-dollar wages, we call it that, salaries, whatever they are, to their top management, that has $6 billion in profit that just declared a new $10 billion dividend. No, you're not going to take back the standard limit of $50,000. And this will not be a strike, and they may still move, because I've told them where this is headed. So they got a few hours. But this will not be a strike where people stand around in a picket line or sit on lawn chairs. This will be a strike that's political from day one. Yeah. The message will be loud and clear. You're not stripping us of our bargaining rights. We're fighting back. And you're not stripping us of our bargaining rights or the things that retirees fought for 50 years. We're fighting back. And we will be out in the community. Verizon Wireless, except for one.